We just pitched a new company today, or a new brand that another brand that's used us before is buying. And that's what we talked about. Like the founder took it as far as they could take it. And now they're struggling, especially in franchising. I see it around like 33 to 39 units, kind of, where people kind of start flailing. Like, what am I going to do? Like, how do I continue to build this? Right.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of PE getting involved now. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see in that space or in that time.
You're listening to RevOps Champions, a podcast created for B2B leaders to help you align your people, streamline your processes, trust your data, and leverage technology in order to grow your business. Welcome back to the RevOps Champions podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ingrid Schneider, founder and CEO of Stay in Your Lane and Train in Your Lane. After building and fixing real businesses across industries like auto body, restaurants, and entertainment, she launched Stay in Your Lane during the pandemic and grew it into a fractional C-suite firm supporting franchise and multi-location brands. Known for her cult brand philosophy and practical approach to AI adoption, Ingrid brings a unique perspective on how companies scale through alignment, identity, and systems, which of course I love. Ingrid, welcome to the RevOps Champions podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, I had the pleasure, of course, of being in your session at IFA about AI. So it's good to have you on the other end this time around.
Ask me the questions now.
That's right.
How did you enjoy the session? Did you feel like you were drinking from a fire hose?
I mean, not really. The real reason I was attending the session was just to see if there was anything that I was missing, I guess, because as a leading HubSpot partner, we're dealing a lot with the transformations that are happening in AI. So I think for me, the best and biggest takeaway was just how aligned we are in how we're thinking about this.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
It's awesome. Thanks for the compliments too. And I'm glad that you didn't feel like that. I'm always curious about people's opinions, because we're all at different levels, right?
Absolutely.
We either started and we don't know what we're doing, or we're way down the pipeline and we're like, this is remedial, silly stuff, right?
Absolutely. And the reality is, like, even if we're in similar spaces, we're seeing things from a slightly different perspective, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So Ingrid, you've built your career as an operator across very different industries. How does that shape the way you approach growth, especially now in franchising?
Oh gosh, I think the thing that I talk about often is kind of the I'll figure it out gene. And I think some people have that and some people don't. And I am a little neurodivergent and a lot of ADHD. And so I've taken that and used it as my superpower. I'm a almost 50-year-old woman, 48, and I don't mind talking about that. And I think, we were underdiagnosed as kids and we didn't know what ADHD was. And I've learned that I have it, but I have this gene where I like to figure things out. So I think that what I've taken from each spot is that A, I don't have to fit in to do what I want to do. And B, I can figure things out. So, when my auto body shop season started, the guy who was my business partner at the time came to me and said, I want you to do this. And I was like, there's no way, right? But now I'm super passionate about cars because I figured it out. And I just love to learn and grow. And so I think some people have that and some people don't. And it's not a shame if you don't have it. It's just the way that my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And I've taken all of that and I've taken it into Stay in Your Lane and Train in Your Lane. And I've continued to figure things out in new ways. And that's how the AI honestly democratized. That's how I kind of approached that too. Like, this is fun. I'm going to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome. And Ingrid, you started Stay in Your Lane first, and then you added Train in Your Lane after. Can you tell us a little about the two? What is Stay in Your Lane and how is Train in Your Lane indifferent to that?
Absolutely. So I started Stay in Your Lane after I got laid off from a franchisor in the space who didn't have the money to pay me anymore. And I said, well, then I don't really have a job. And I said, I'm not going to work for anyone ever again. And I think as women, we come into our 40s and we can really stand in who we are and know what our worth is. And I was just like, I can be a fractional CMO and I can do this. And I had really built a name for myself with the rebranding of that brand and understanding what marketing looked like and doing fun marketing, the emotive marketing that really pulls people in. That's the best kind of
Mhm.
marketing. People just started asking like, well, can you do this? And well, can you do that? And I'd be like, no, but I can figure that out. And I just ended up collecting a team of people that know so much more than me. I have a Meta ads expert and a Google ads expert. I have someone who does copywriting, which we do a ton of still regular copywriting, not in the age of AI, or with the age of AI, we still believe that we need a human in the loop for a lot of those things. We have operations people, and I have a gal who helps me drop or pick up all the dropped balls that I drop. It's a really great team. So I just started building this team of people kind of on accident. It wasn't like I'm a visionary for sure, but I didn't be like, I'm going to start this agency and it's going to do all of this, right?
Mhm.
About halfway down the line, we added franchise development, which is something that we love to do, especially building the systems and building the machine. Like you guys are a HubSpot integrator, right? Like we love going in and building the drip campaign emails and
Mhm.
building the decks for the brokers and building the 2-minute drill. So we still do some franchise development and franchise development marketing too, some lead gen. So that was stay in your lane. And we were just cruising along. And then when AI was democratized, I started talking about it. I started figuring it out. And Kitty Academy was the first brand that actually came to me and said, hey, Ingrid, can you train our team? I have a master's in education, which I didn't ever use because I student taught with a group of fourth grade boys in Aurora, Colorado, who two of who I still speak to, and they're now married with children because I'm not old. But they were quite the rowdy bunch of boys. And I said, this is not for me. But I did get my master's in education. So I've taken that and I've actually applied it to what we're doing. And also, I am a learner myself. I'm a perpetual learner. So I think when you're a perpetual learner, you kind of learn how to people understand, right? So you were in
Mhm.
our session, like to cover topics in micro sessions, and we do little micro classes on different things. People's brain span is not as long as it used to be, right? They're losing because of TikTok and we're our rapid kind of input all the time. We're just losing that. So that's how I like to teach. And we started teaching, and then people started thinking that we were an AI teaching company. And I said, wait, we got to stop. We actually need to rebrand ourselves, which is something that we do a ton of, is branding in the marketing field. And I said, we're going to rebrand and we're going to start a separate company that does the training because I
Mhm.
want to tell the story correctly, right? Marketing is storytelling. So we rolled that off into Train in Your Lane and kind of launched that brand. We've been super successful. I speak at a bunch of conferences. If you would have told Ingrid, probably like 25-year-old Ingrid, even that she was going to be a speaker, she would laugh at you and say, that's not my MO. I was
Mhm.
always the girl who was told that she didn't talk well and she spoke too fast and she did this and that. So it's kind of just ironic that I'm now speaking to large groups like Ben and Jerry's and Wild Birds Unlimited and just having a heyday doing it. So I have 10 speaking engagements this year so far
Wow.
and would love to do more. I love speaking to franchise brands about how AI can help them and their franchisees.
Mhm.
So, and then we do classes too on the Train in Your Lane side. Stay in Your Lane is a fractional fran dev, fractional marketing company. That's what we do really well on that. And then Train in Your Lane, really we do AI training. And that's really, you said it, and it's really for anyone. Yes, we specialize in the franchise space, but we're actually doing a ton more outside of it. I just spoke at EO Philadelphia for a women's conference, and now we're starting a cohort with the women that were in there to
Mhm.
learn AI. It's going to be so much fun. There's about 30 women in there that really want to dig in, and I love creating environments where people can learn. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. That's yeah. So training your lane is, of course, is the newer of the two, and that is specifically sort of that scratches your education itch, I guess, right?
it does. I also just, again, I'm a perpetual learner, so I'm constantly feeding myself. My idea of a good time is to turn on Netflix at night after I've walked the dog and done my nightly routine and dig into a new AI tool.
Yeah.
Kind of mess around and figure it out. I don't know if
Yeah.
you have that same kind of philosophy, but like, I don't know. It's just like, wow, this can happen. And I like to blow my own mind. Like, this can do that. Right. And I think as AI is democratized, I really do see people getting a little bit lazier with their work. But I think
Mhm.
that as I rely on AI more, I'm still continuing to learn what AI can do. Right. So it's not me getting lazy. It's me continuing to feed myself on how I can utilize these tools and really build my AI intuition. You heard us
Absolutely.
talk
Yeah.
about that. AI intuition is like one of the biggest skills right now. And I see that actually people asking, like, how much are you using AI on jobs, right? You're looking for a new job. And I just actually posted one. We're looking for a new CMO as Chantel leaves us.
Mhm.
We're super excited for her. There's no bad blood there or anything. She just was her time to depart. I can never get mad at people when they leave
Mhm.
companies. I love her and I wish her the best. But one of the things I put in the job description is like, you have to be fluent in AI. Like you have to be able to adapt to these tools and use them because we make a real difference in the people's lives at Stay in Your Lane because Train in Your Lane does what it does.
Yeah. So Ingrid, you spend a lot of time in the franchise space. What makes franchising operationally more complex or different from other business models?
That's a great question. I mean, I think obviously the franchisees make it more complex, right? You're dealing with so many personalities. You're dealing with different kinds of people. People have actually like invested their life savings or rolled over their IRAs to buy these businesses, and their life depends on it.
Uh-huh.
That's one thing I see as a big difference is you have more players in the game and there's more stakes, right? Where if you have an independent company, maybe it's PE that holds it or an individual, it's just one person that's really risking the biscuit, right?
Right. Yeah.
So franchising is way different than that. And it's so nuanced, I think. There's laws around it and things you can say and things you can't say and things you can do and things you can't do. But
Right.
I really do love the system. And as a serial entrepreneur, I love that it's people can get in and not know how to necessarily run a business. And they have a lot of guidance and support to get something off the ground that makes money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, really cool. So Ingrid, when a brand starts scaling, so if we now sort of look ahead at some of the more mature brands, when a brand starts scaling, where do you most often see things break first? Is it alignment? Is it systems? Is it leadership, or is it something else?
I mean, I think it's a combination of everything, honestly. I think that, I've gotten to this point where I hired a noob who's my CEO, where I'm like, hey, I'm the founder. I can only take it to this place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's not because I'm inept or I'm not capable, but like really what serves the people around me and what serves my company. And I'm a builder, but I'm a builder to a point where you said this earlier, we get bored, right? We're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I need to figure out the next thing, the next iteration, how is this going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to use my skills in a way that are advantageous for the company and for the people around me, right? And sometimes I think founders hold on too long to that seat. Actually, we just pitched a new company today or a new brand that another brand that's used us before is buying. And that's what we talked about. Like the founder took it as far as they could take it. And now they're struggling, especially in franchising. I see it around like 33 to 39 units, kind of, where people kind of start flailing. Like, what am I going to do? Like, how do I continue to build this? Right.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of PE getting involved now. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see in that space or in that time.
Yeah, I must say, I like that statistic that you shared about 33 to 39 units because I've been doing a lot of thinking and reading lately on, are you familiar with the rule of 3 and 10?
No.
Which, again, I think anyone listening, if you're thinking about going from a team of 3 to a team of 10 or from 3 units to 10 units or whatever. But then, of course, it goes 3, 10, 30, 100, 300, 1,000 is when things typically have to evolve, where systems break, essentially. So it was just interesting that you mentioned the 33 to 39 units. It makes total sense because those are the franchise brands, for example, that are trying to get from 30 to 100, right?
It's the hardest. Literally, like the brands that come to us and say, we're stalled out. And we love that kind of things. Like our systems are broken. We're stalled out. We need help.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, okay, let's dig into your marketing. Let's do an audit. Like, where is your fran dev failing? We have operations people that we don't focus a ton on operations, but we can go in and kind of see what's going on. And it's always 33-ish to 39 units where people are like, we're broken, we're stuck. So it's really interesting that rule, I've never heard about it, but I'll for sure look it up and kind of read about it.
Yeah. It was created by a Japanese CEO, and he was seeing this in his own business, and then started looking around and realized that every sort of CEO he was speaking to was essentially confirming the same thing, that they hit these ceilings at these sort of different points and we've all, I think anyone who hears it for the first time, they go, if they've been from, had a team of 3 people and then 10, and then they're trying to get to 30, we've all experienced that, right? Because your systems and your processes have to evolve.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do. And what served me at 4 employees doesn't serve me at 16. And we've evolved so much over the past 3 years.
Absolutely.
And AI too has talk about growth. Like AI has just exacerbated growth, right? And if you're not paying attention, you
Hmm.
are falling behind. And my team does so much more work. I also think it exacerbates growth in a bad way. We see a lot of scope creep now because we can just get things done in a better
Hmm.
way. And I think that people are thinking about AI the wrong way in that just because I can get it done faster doesn't mean it's better, right? So, like,
Hmm.
we're constantly the human has to stay in the loop, the dragon
Yeah.
needs a rider. I mean, they're also paying for my experience, right? I can ask AI to do something, but it doesn't know all the nuanced behaviors of marketing. It doesn't know all of and it is getting better. This is the worst AI we're ever gonna use, right? Like,
Exactly.
we've seen it just grow exponentially, but
Yeah.
the human in the loop has to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've said that most businesses don't have a marketing problem; they have an identity problem.
Yes.
How does that show up specifically in franchise systems?
Gosh. I think branding is a huge piece of it. And branding, people think it's just like the colors and the fonts and the logos, and it's so pretty,
Yeah.
right? But no, branding is the nuances. It's how you talk about your brand. It's how your franchisees talk about your brand. Like, what are your propositions? What are your core values? What are your mission and your vision? And people need to be evaluating that every 3 to 5 years, especially in franchise systems as you grow, right? Who
Hmm.
you are right now, in 3 years, you're probably not going to be the same and going
Right.
through your brand and saying, is this still our value? Like, we actually can't focus on saving kids through selling blinds anymore. We're just selling blinds, right? Like, how do things change? So, identity is a really big issue. And I'm actually working with a client right now who has a bunch of real estate brands and they're not in the franchise space. And it's a huge identity crisis because they have an overarching brand and then they have smaller brands underneath it and they don't know how they all work together, right?
Hmm.
It's organization and identity that really drives a brand forward and knowing who you are. I
Hmm.
would kind of just say it's like a human, right? As I've gotten older, I've learned to know myself more. I'm sure that you have too, right? I know
Hmm.
my inadequacies. I know where I'm going to succeed. I know when I need to pass something on.
Hmm.
I still make mistakes all the time because we're humans living a human experience. But going back to identity and just understanding to focus on your business, to know what your core values are. When we start with a client, we start with goals always.
Hmm.
What are your goals? Right. And I think sometimes people are so much in their own minutia, and I even suffer from this, that they can't step back and look at their business and understand, yes, this is our goal, but how are we going to get there using our own identity and where we came from, right? Like,
Hmm.
what is our story?
Right.
So it's a really interesting problem that a lot of people see. And when we go into people and they're like, we don't know how to build this, we typically start with their identity. Like, what does it look like? How does it feel? How do you touch it? How does it move you? Is it
Mm.
emotive? Does it tell a story? And then how are we going to get people to join the system and buy into that story?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, in that work, have you found that, I guess I've spoken to a few franchisors over the last few months who started something that they thought, if they were really lucky, might get up to 100 units, and now they've already sold, over 450 units, and it's just, taken on a life of its own. Which, if you think about, is, it does change the identity of maybe where you started, and therefore also changes how you market and scale and how you adapt as you grow through these different sizes. Like we just talked about, getting to 30 units is a big deal, but then there's a big fall off between 30 and 100 units. And I guess, do you see franchise brands having to sort of, have they figured out their identity from the beginning, or can their identity change as they grow?
It can for sure change. And I think that some people, like, we don't know what we don't know, right? I've seen people start like, a mom and pop kind of, let's see, I'm going to try to make an example, a hair cutting salon, right? That has a really good culture and a really good people. And they're like, we can replicate this, we can do it.
Uh,
But they don't know how they actually built the first one, right? Maybe it was just a really good leader. Maybe it is a really good concept. Maybe it was just like the perfect team in that location, right? Like, what is it that took you to this? And some people have a hard time identifying that. And so to replicate things, it can get difficult, right? So
mm,
you've got to kind of dissect the
mhm,
entire process and figure out like what happened from 1 to 5. And we talked to a lot of founders about this. Like, tell me the story from 1 to 5. Tell me the story from 5 to 10. Tell me the story from 10 to 15. Like,
mhm,
they're like, oh, from 10 to 15, what we really saw, and we see this a ton in franchise brands, is that the franchisees actually start selling the brand, right? The
mm,
1 to 5 are the biggest risk takers, They're the ones that are like, I'm going to just do whatever you say, or I'm going to come in and spend my money. I'm not going to do whatever you say, but we're going to like do this together. And I'm excited. And they're buying from a founder usually, right? But after 10, they're not buying from the founder anymore. They're buying from the 10 franchisees that have already invested in the system, right? So that's a much different story than buying from a founder. And I think people get in the way sometimes of now telling the story of the franchisees instead of telling the stories of the founder. So every iteration needs to be kind of evaluated and dissected. How did we get from 5 to 10? Okay, we did this, right? But that's not necessarily going to work from 15 to 20, right?
Right. Yeah.
I like to work backwards. I love to kind of take things apart and then put them back together and be like, okay, so yeah, you've gotten to 30. And this is how you got there. The first 10 were this, the second 10 were this, the third 10 were this. Like, how do you think the next 10 are going to sell? And kind of storyboard it and figure out, like, can we figure out how the next iteration is going to happen?
Yeah. Which comes back to the sort of, the alignment piece again, right? So when alignment actually starts working inside a system, what changes? Alignment also has to evolve as a franchise system grows. So for you, like, what changes, from 5 units to, let's say 25 units, and then if for those who are fortunate to make it to 50 units, what changes at those different levels?
I mean, I think at first it's just fun, right? And you're just building something because you have a passion about it. And then you kind of put the brakes on. You're like, okay, we built this, but we don't have the systems in place. And we don't have an org chart. And we don't have a marketing manual. And we don't have this and we don't have that. And so you start putting those things in place. And then you have those things and people come in and you're like, okay, this was great. And this worked. We had this little Slack board for 1 to 10 franchisees, but now I can't manage the Slack board because we've got 20 franchisees. So what's the next iteration? Okay, let's put them on a CRM where they can actually go in and see different things, and let's build them in LMS, right? So I think evolution is like, if you don't evolve as a franchisor, you're going to die. Like it's not going to work the same as it did with 1 unit to 50 units. I think that's one of the biggest things, is just always evaluating the transformative ways that you need to move forward. Right? I mean, teams grow. You've got to understand who owns what. You've got to be really clear in delegation. And I think that's something that I've done poorly at times and then really well. And my team will ask for it and be like, hey, we need to actually realign. Like, can we have an alignment meeting? And I feel like so-and-so owns too much and we need to move this over this. And I think for me as a leader too, changing is listening to more of what my team wants and explaining to them. Like I believe in the directive model, which is like direct without being a director, if that makes sense. So like asking them why or what do you need? And if they need a major operational change, like going in and regrouping. And I think that's the part of rolling out timelines and helping people feel like they're a part of something that gets the buy-in for the next iteration too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that question. I could talk about that for a really long time.
Yeah. I'm just thinking sort of, because, I mean, earlier you were saying how so many brands, they sort of end up in this 33 to 39 units and then things just start to break and they don't sort of get past that. Of course, you and I also know that there are many what would have been franchise brands that don't get past 10, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, what do you think are the ceilings that are just preventing these franchise brands from breaking past 10 units and then they get to 30 and then they just kind of stall out? What do you think is the difference between a brand that got to 30 and the brands that then get to 100 and beyond 100?
I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons in there. I think that some of the brands that only get to 10 are super trendy. There's a company at IFA that I thought, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so cool. I would totally use this product XYZ, but it's going to be around for 2 years and then nobody's going to want this anymore. Like, what is the longevity of the brand, right? And people are selling brands that may not have a longevity, right? Trendy donuts, trendy food, trendy things like, Dippin' Dots was kind of an outlier in that. Like it went kind of viral and people still love Dippin' Dots. But, I think about some of the cookie brands and how cool they were to start with, but then we've seen just numbers decline, right? Because if you have a hard time staying on that trend, it's not going to continue to grow. There are outliers in that story. So I think there's different scenarios for every situation. And that's one of them. Another ceiling would be not adapting. right? Like I see brands with old technology. Oh my gosh, let's talk about HubSpot. Like you guys doing that. Like I'm sure you've seen some horror stories too, where you're coming in, people are still working off a Google spreadsheet and you're like, oh my gosh, like for franchise development, you can't work off a spreadsheet anymore, especially
Mhm.
at 30 units, 40 units. And how many leads are you getting and you're working a spreadsheet? Like it's a waste of time and energy and you're not closing deals fast enough. That's another one. I think technology, I think systems and operations, obviously. Like if you don't have the infrastructure to support 30 franchisees, you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't have a team, if it's a team of two, I've seen crazy things where people are like, yeah, we have 75 franchisees and we have 3 executives supporting them. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Why?
Right. Yeah. That might be possible in the future once AI really kicks in, but right now it just seems
Yeah,
hard to
yes.
believe. Yeah, it's interesting, because so we had a booth at IFA, and we had a number of brands come up to us who were, well over 100 units, and there was one specifically that sort of stood out to me where they were saying that now an increasing number, I think it was close to 50% of their franchisees are using HubSpot, but the franchisor doesn't use or endorse HubSpot and it's all part of their franchise agreement and what have you. And I'm like, well, that's really sad,
Yeah.
because in that case, it's an example of a group of franchisees that just had to kind of figure it out on their own.
Well, and
Where
I think that's the best laid plan, honestly. Like when franchisees can figure out things, I think about the Filet-O-Fish, right? At McDonald's.
Mhm.
That was a franchisee who's like, my business tanks on Sundays because I'm in a Catholic neighborhood and, I need a fish option. And
Right.
it's a great menu item, right? And I think that we need to listen to franchisees. Committees are
Mhm.
great, and we've got to also manage them,
Sure.
right? But that's a huge problem, and that is a ceiling too. When the franchisees are going rogue, and the company or the franchisor isn't adapting to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's yeah, I think that's one that stood out to me as you were saying it, is if they're not changing, so adapting and adopting to the market, then that they become, the franchisor becomes the ceiling to their own growth,
Yeah,
right?
their own
Yeah.
demise. It's like me too. Like I got out of the way. Like I want a noob to run this. Like I don't want to run it anymore. Not because I'm not capable again, but because like I think that it's going to go way bigger and do much more with him in the driver's seat.
Yeah, well, this is it. We all have to stick to our strengths, which
Yeah.
is essentially, I guess, is what we're talking about here. Is the reason that you get certain brands that get into the 30, 33 to 39 units, and then they just stall out, is most likely because they didn't want to get beyond that comfort zone of bringing other people in who could take it from the 30s to the hundreds, right?
Well, we all have a pride and we all have an ego, right? We battle that every day. And our ego can be great for us, honestly. It can move us and it can get things done, but also it can be our demise too.
Yeah,
Holding
yeah,
that baby way too tightly and not letting it start to walk,
just
right?
yeah, getting out of our own way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ingrid, and you talk about building cult brands. How do you balance strong brand consistency with local flexibility in a franchise model?
Gosh, that's a really great question. Well, number one, I think AI has helped us with this so much. I talked about this at Ben and Jerry's when I talked.
Hmm.
what how people talk in California is way different than how they talk in New York and in Boston, right? So I think for marketing, we're able to actually talk to our local demographics in a different way. So we come up with these concepts, right, and these plans. But maybe in Boston, they're not going to say, that's cool, dude, or something that's very California,
Hmm.
right? Or the new word that kids are all using is bro. Everything is bro, yo, bro. So
Hmm.
you can say that in some contexts, but some contexts you can't. And I think with AI too, it's really given us an opportunity to really help people at a local level do nuanced marketing for themselves. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? And so,
Hmm.
yes, the franchisor still has the control, but we can tweak things really easily. And building a cult brand, I think, all cults start with a good leader, and a good leadership and team. And I think that's like where it lies, right? But
Hmm.
then they also have to have the buy-in of the cult, right? Like
Sure.
everybody, the members, right?
Yeah.
So how are you compelling? How do you listen? How do you empathize? How do you bring them along on the journey? How do you get them excited? All of those things are super important. And I think with local marketing, we're at an impasse right now where it can be so driven down into their little niche market. And
Mm.
franchisors who don't understand how to do that are actually like losing the game,
Yeah.
right? and you can build a cult in your own community. And I also think the cool thing about that is we talk a ton about with our brands about guerrilla marketing and actually like coming in and being involved in your community. And so you're kind of building your own little group of people and following in that. So how are you involved in the BNI groups? How are you involved in your community? Are you sponsoring the soccer team? Are you at the local events, the chamber events, going out, meeting friends, kissing babies, shaking hands, kind of doing that yourself? Right? So I think it's an interesting business model because yes, you're building kind of a cult brand. You think about Smoothie King and everybody loves Smoothie King, right? But I go into my local Smoothie King and I know the owner and the operator and he's a cool dude and his son's running it with him and I have a relationship with them. So I think it's very nuanced and they're also doing some of their own marketing. I've talked to them about it and they get to do Colorado marketing and, you can theme it around the Broncos, which I'm not really a Broncos fan, but I am a Nuggets fan. So maybe we should do it around the Nuggets. Like one of those things, right? That you can actually like pull from your local community and really establish things that are cool for that area.
Yeah. Just yeah, that's an interesting thought. So you're saying, so even though they're part of a national or international franchise brand, there are still things that they might need to do at a local level because, to your point, folks on the East Coast don't do things the same as the same way as the folks on the West Coast or anywhere in between, right?
Marketing's not a one size fits all. When you're building a cult brand, like I think people, especially at franchise systems, they will say like, this is what's going to work for this area, right? And sometimes the locations that work the best are the ones that you think are going to underperform. When I worked for that franchisor and I was a CMO, one of the biggest locations was the smallest town because they didn't have anything else.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And we're like, this should never work in this town. It should never work. But it kicked butt because there wasn't any other option. So I think that it's never a one size fits all. And I think that it should always kind of challenge the status quo. I think that marketers need to understand and franchisors that what works in one market's not going to work in another. And in order to like build a true cult following, it has to have an amazing product, but you also have to listen to that local level and what they want. I know that when you drive through McDonald's to McDonald's at different locations, some like down south, they have biscuits and gravy. I don't have biscuits and gravy in Denver. I get kind of jealous of that the South has biscuits and gravy at McDonald's. I think McDonald's does a really good job of segmenting their markets and understanding what the market drives and what the demand of that market is.
Yeah. That is a really good point. Okay, so I think I've delayed you for up to 30 minutes now, not talking about AI yet. So congratulations, you've made it this far.
Thank you.
So, but now let's talk AI, right? So, which is how you and I first met in February in Las Vegas at IFA, because you were presenting a session on AI and franchising.
Yeah.
So, Ingrid, you've said most AI projects fail because companies skip education. What does getting it right actually look like from your perspective?
So we talk a lot about this, and what we've seen over and over again is these large companies going straight to implementation. So if I come into your office and I hand you a computer and you've only seen encyclopedias since then, and I hand you a computer and I say, I need you to build a website. Here's the tool that you're going to do it. You're going to look at me like I have my head on backwards. You don't know what a mouse is. You don't know what a keyboard is. You don't know what a monitor is. What is a website even, right? So we have to start at the lowest level of teaching people like what is a model? How are these models trained? And you build AI intuition by understanding how all the pieces work together. And some people don't want to learn that, and I understand that. But also you've got to kind of ramp up your knowledge base. You have to understand how to use the mouse, right? How do you use the large language model? What are the parameters? Let's talk about safety. Safety is so important. If you're just handing someone a computer, they're not going to know what to do with it, right? And they could do some bad things with it. They can upload their credit card information to a website. They don't know if it's real or not. They don't understand the philosophies of safety behind it. So the education has to come first before the application, and then the transformation happens. We see companies, I could name 5 off the top of my head that are big, huge brands that have implemented, and I will actually, well, I'm not glad to. I was going to say, I'll call somebody else because he calls himself out all the time. But this person decided to go all in on AI and actually had heard me talk and they're really smart. And they started this product and spent so much money on it for their franchisees. The franchisees didn't want it. They didn't use it. They didn't know how to use it. Why are we investing our cash into this and our royalties and our marketing fund and this brand fund? Like, what is this going to do for us? So I think what needs to happen first for franchisees is education. We educate franchisees and franchisors. We also act as like Dreammaker Kitchen and Bath has hired us on as a fractional AI officer. So we have office hours with them every week. And they're like, hey, we're trying to solve these problems. And I think the best thing is the collaborative piece of it. Like, we love working with brands who want to collaborate with us, where we're not necessarily building things for them. That doesn't work. Like, if
Yeah.
you're just building things for people, or if you're just hiring someone to build something for you, it doesn't work, right? Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, even you probably see that too. Like, you got to understand how HubSpot moves through things in order to be able to use it, right?
Absolutely.
So if you just gave somebody and said, use this HubSpot, they'd be like, what is this? And why do I need it? And you've got to educate them on the nuances of it. How does it work? If you do this, then this. If this happens, then do this.
Mm,
Right. And then
absolutely.
people can then have that application and they were using it. And then they see transformation and they're like, we're moving leads through faster. Oh my gosh, my franchisees are so much happier because we're doing this. So education is just the root of all of AI democratization.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you see as currently I mean, you sort of started touching on some of the boundaries to individual people inside a franchise system, in this case, not sort of resisting adopting AI sort of more completely as it rolls out. And, as you were saying earlier, whatever we know about AI today is just scratching the surface of how we're going to be using it tomorrow, right? So what do you see still as the biggest, obstacles to adoption of AI within franchise systems?
Education, honestly. Nick Pope and I talk about this all the time. He's our fractional chief AI officer. He actually has another job too, where he's just doing AI.
Mhm.
And I go into these classes and I'm like, I'm teaching remedial ideas. Like, this is the silliest class. Like, they're not going to like this. And I do it almost every single time. And I have a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't get this. And then people leave and they're like, wow. And their mind was blown. Right. And it's normal to me because I live in it all day. And I'm talking about it. And my team has meetings about AI and we're talking about tools and we're doing this and that. But these people really need to understand like where the foundation lies and where we've got to come back to. But I
Yeah.
also think franchisors are missing the fact that they can also educate their franchisees, and they're so terrified of doing it. But when the
Mm.
franchisees can adopt it, we were at Ben and Jerry's, and I was showing the franchisees like, hey, you have to write the same catering email 26 times a day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can automate that process and you can actually build, at that point it was a GPT to actually answer your catering emails and you don't have to think about that. Like, what does that take off your plate?
Yeah.
And educating your franchisees so that they can have the minutia taken off their plate, that's really where the low hanging fruit is, right? It's not like changing their lives so that they can automate everything that they do from start to finish. And that will happen, right? We're going to be able to automate inventory. We're going to be able to automate more calls and more everything. Everything is going to be automated. I don't know if you've heard the Tesla calls or have gotten any of the robocalls with the sales calls now. It's not real human and you feel like you're having a human conversation. Then you're like, wait a minute, I had a
Yeah.
little uncanny valley there. That's totally AI. But I think that we are missing the education piece. When this was democratized, my dream, and actually Nick and I talk about this all the time, was like franchising sometimes, and I will say this with a kind heart, the bar is low sometimes in
Mhm.
franchising.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, we've got to move faster. And I really felt like if we dug into AI harder, we could actually set ourselves apart in a lot of businesses and a lot of business models. And I
Mm.
haven't seen that happen still. I think there's some people that are growing and learning. I think there's some brands who are adopting and really want to dig in. I mean, like Dreammaker, for instance, who we spoke at their conference and then taught them a class. We teach us, this 3-part class, and then they taught them the second part of the class, which is a 2.0. And then they're like, hey, we're all in and we want our team using it. And they see the value. We have an ROI calculator on our site
Mhm.
that actually can show you the value of adoption in AI tools. And that's
Oh,
just like
very
taking
cool.
1 hour a day off of your team, right?
Yeah.
The money savings is astronomical.
Right. So what do you think are the obstacles or the hurdles? Why do you think more franchise sort of brand leadership aren't sort of pushing more into?
We hear a lot of things. We don't have time. If you don't have time, then you should really be adapting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the low level hanging fruit stuff that can just be taken off your plate that you can automate? Why don't you have an agent? I showed you in our class, like I have an agent who texts me every day and I love it.
Uh-huh.
Right? It texted me before our meeting. Hey, Ingrid, you have this podcast recording in 13 minutes. Make sure you have a microphone and your headphones, which I just got a new computer. So I did not have those because I don't have the dongle. But I was like, thanks for the reminder. Like all of those things you have to adopt. Adoption is one's living in fear. Like I see so many people still living in fear of like the AI is going to eat me, and it's going to change you. Yep. And it's going to change your business. Yep. It won't eat you. But if you're not adopting now, your business is going to be outdated and it's just going to die at some point in time. Right.
Yeah.
What are the parts? We talk about that DoorDash video that I love where she started talking about like, hey, if you are taking people out of your business and using AI to do a part of their job, like move those people. Don't just cancel those dollars. How fast can you grow if you're reinvesting the dollars that you are saving with AI back into your company? And I'm an entrepreneur, right? I take a lower salary because I want the money to go back in my company because I want to scale it, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to take all the resources out. It's the same with AI. You can
Yeah.
just build faster and stronger systems in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ingrid, for franchise operators and their teams that are listening to this, where are the biggest immediate opportunities to use AI to drive efficiency or growth from your perspective?
I mean, having it handle the minutia. Jade is she's not my assistant. She's the director of like, I don't know what we call her, but she keeps everything together. Like literally, she's the brain. I call her the clutch of the company because
of staff. Yeah.
yeah, and you met Jade. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She spoke at the conference too. Jade holds it all together and she really kind of feathers the clutch for us.
So the question was for franchise operators listening, where are the biggest immediate opportunities to
Minutia.
use
Yep.
to
So
drive efficiency or growth? Yeah.
answering emails and also taking things off your plate, right? Like my AI assistant on my phone is so great. Like it's so great. It answers questions for me. And honestly, with my perimenopausal brain, I need it more now than ever. Like I'm like, what was that email about? Or if you and I have had a meeting 6 months ago, it'll remind me who you are, which I need that. Like I'm absent-minded in that way, right? It's like, Ingrid, you met with this person and they worked at this pizza place and you met with them 8 months ago and this is who they were and that's what you talked about this time. And I'm like, oh, that's great, right?
Yeah.
I think we're inundated with amounts of information and just too much information. And how do we continue to categorize that? It keeps us organized. Meeting notes are amazing. I mean, how much information did we used to have in a meeting note that we now put into this system? And then we automate checklists and we say, okay, Lucho, you're doing this. Noel, you're doing this. Ingrid, you're doing this. And then it goes into a checklist so that you take the human out of the loop of these low level kind of remedial minutia kind of stuff and automate those things. And it's not hard to automate things anymore, honestly. So that's one way that they should be using it. Another way is honestly teaching their franchisees to use it too. You want higher royalties? You want your franchisees to sell more? Like help them get the minutia off of their plate. That's a huge one. Huge one.
Yeah. For you and I, of course, we see so much opportunity, but at the same time, of course, you can understand how the bigger a brand or a franchise is, the more complexity there is to sort of rolling this out. What advice would you have for brands that are concerned about adopting AI?
The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. With big brands too, right? Like I see analysis by paralysis all the time. And that's dangerous. Educate your team. Just start there. Like you don't have to have everything figured out. Just start with education and then kind of let it snowball. We see super users identified in those kind of groups. If you're a huge brand, right, and you roll out education and this person's already doing this, this, and this, it's a huge one. Then start a cohort. Like we love cohorts. We had one this morning. Every Thursday morning, my team comes together on both sides of the team and we share about what we've done and we teach each other. Like fostering a community where you can grow and where you can learn and explore and safely is huge. Also have an AI policy. That policy should feel more like a permission slip than a detention slip. I want my team coming to me saying, hey, Ingrid, did you try this new tool? We actually just rolled out a new tool in place of Figma that works better for us. And it's an AI-driven web-based building tool that moves a little faster. And it's not, again, the human still has to be in the loop. I have 2 graphic designers and a UX UI gal on my team who are all amazing and they're still using this tool. But it takes some of the remedial stuff out of the way, right? So you've got to let them explore. You've got to let them grow. I think the communities and the franchisors who are actually fostering this community of growth mindedness are going to be the ones that win in the end.
Yeah. Very cool. Ingrid, to wrap up, what last piece of advice would you like to leave our audience? Which again, keep thinking about, franchise brands are, between 50 and 1,000 units. Who again, and it doesn't matter whether they're at 50 or 100 or 500, they all
have to break through the next, the
Tier.
next tier and hurdle. What advice do you have, again, just from an AI perspective?
From an AI perspective, advice, I'm going to say it again, like educate your people and educate yourself and don't stick your head in the mud. You've got to keep up and it's moving so fast. It can be overwhelming. But if you're fostering a community of growth, can we kind of all learn from each other, right? It's like my favorite thing. Other AI advice is change your algorithm. And you probably heard me say this in the class like 5 or 6 times. If you're going to doom scroll on AI tools. It's not always I like still a little trash TV algorithm and I like a little bit of cooking show algorithm and I like a little bit of dog and otter stuff. But also I'll just go in some days and I'll be like, I need to learn more about AI. And so I'll just say like AI tools or AI influencers and I'll just start watching videos. Don't keep your head in the sand. Continue to be a learner. Listen to podcasts. We post a ton of resources on our pages for people. We love training teams. If you have questions on how to actually make it work in your system, come and ask us or ask somebody who's done it. I think the one thing about the franchising community is so cool is that we all don't gatekeep. And I'm sure you've experienced that. Like if you want to know how somebody done it, they will usually be like, this is how we did it.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So ask another friend, phone a friend who has done this. And they're going to probably say that this started with education, honestly. We've seen Empower brands like take their whole entire team to a new level. And I still have messages almost daily from their team going, Ingrid, look what I did, or I did this, or look what we learned, or have you tried this? That is the coolest thing when we just see these little flickers turn into this huge smoldering fire.
Yeah.
As people have actually given their teams permission to kind of dig in.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice. Just, start with something small and it'll start to snowball. Yeah. Really good advice. Ingrid, thanks so much for being on the show, and I look forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, it was fun, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time. Time's a gift and an effort and worth cash, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.